like, share, and subscribe in our YouTube channel. Even if Jagadish Mohanty had not written any other stories or novels, his Odia novel Nijo Nijo Panipatha would have acknowledged him as a writer of eminence in Odia literature. This English translation from Odia by Professor Himansu Mohapatra and Professor Paul St-Pierre and published by Penguin as Battles of Our Own is an unique Indian example of industrial novel, giving an international exposure of such a moving out of an ordinary story, a work of gritty realism in its portrayal of a dark and dangerous underworld where coal is extracted, reveal the primeval struggle between man and the brute nature. Apart from 5 novels and 13 short story collections, he has been honored with Odisha Sahitya Academy Award. To be able to sense his creative style, we thought of introducing Odia subtitles for the Odia readers. I hope you would watch, listen the battles of our own and forward your comments.
Jagadish Mohanty was the trend-setting writer of Odia short fiction in the 1970s and 80s. He helped to give Odia short fiction a distinct modern touch by experimenting with existentialist themes of loss of identity, exile, and alienation. In his novel Nijo Nijo Panipatha, however, his genius has found its fullest expression. The novel stands out in modern Odia literature for 2 reasons. First of all, it presents a world rarely encountered in Odia literature before, that of the coal mine. Second of all, it explores the dark recesses of the human mind that correspond to such a murky world. Paul St-Pierre and I translated this novel in order to highlight the novel's gritty realism and its acute psychological portrayal of the dark human mind. We were also equally drawn to its unique style, which is minimalist and yet supremely evocative. The first chapter of Battles of Our Own, to be presented here in Anant Mahapatra's audio-visual translation, presents the gripping story of the displaced youth Pradyumna. Needless to say, the resources of this new medium, coupled with Srijukta Mohapatra's dramatic genius, have rendered the story doubly gripping.
A translation is not destined for a person who is able to read the original text. If one can read the original, then the work of the translator becomes both useless and a screen. Useless as there is no need for it, and a screen from the original work itself. But a translation can also be a porous screen, providing a particular and therefore partial reading of the original, meant for readers who would otherwise not have access to it. For such readers, the original text exists only because of the translation. If the translation is, as it is meant to be, read with no knowledge of the original tongue, it opens up new worlds and different sensations. This can truly be said for Battles of Our Own by Jagadish Mohanty, in the translation by Himansu Mohapatra and myself, published by Penguin India. The new world is that of the coal miner, and the different sensations are the feelings of angst and guilt displayed by the actors in this drama, even though it is a novel. As readers and translators, we are transported far from home and are better off for it. As a translator, and I willfully state my claim to this label, I am transformed too, both as a reader and as an active participant in the work of translation. I am transformed by my collaboration with a fellow human, and by my confrontation with a work of imagination that has transmuted reality and communicates a deeper truth. Battles of Our Own more than amply does this. In this reading, Anant Mahapatra brings life to this translation, this partial representation. By pauses, modulation, and intonation, he livens for us what is on the page and displays a consummate skill in doing so. There could be no better activation of the written word.
Battles of Our Own. Why did everything seemed coated in grime? The tables and chairs, the office of the timekeepers, the lamp cabin, the electrical room where the batteries were charging, the tin roof overhead, the shed on one side. Almost everything was in proper place, yet dingy and bathed in gloom. The door to the lamp cabin on the left and on the right, the timekeeper's counter. For a coal miner, there was no choice but to check in with the timekeeper, who would bend over one ledger or another. He would hand over a slip and to be taken to the lamp cabin, where it would be produced and exchanged for a lamp and a battery. The moment the lamp was attached to your helmet, the battery shoved in to the holder at your waist. You were transformed into a coal miner. That was exactly what happened to Pradyumna. Down in the coal mine, he was not known as Pradyumna Mishra, but as Somaru Khodia, the son of Boitu Khodia, an illiterate member of a scheduled tribe. Above the ground, he returned to his original identity, to being Pradyumna Mishra again, the son of retired school teacher Sri Sarveswar Mishra from the Brahminical village of Puri. His family at home included, in addition to his parents, his educated sisters of marriageable age, and his married but out of work elder brother, his brother's wife, and their 5-year-old daughter. Once, when the timekeeper bent over the form filled out by those going down into the pit, had asked Pradyumna his name, he had come close to blotting out his real one. Immediately, he had cut himself short. It dawned on him that every time he came to the pit head, his identity changed. Beyond the machines charging the batteries, there was a small opening. This was the main entrance to the mine, where a man, the body checker, was stationed. He frisked the miners going down for bidis, cigarettes, or matches. Before he had ever seen an actual coal mine. Pradyumna had imagined it to be like in a film, with a lift to take miners down. When he had seen the coal mine here, he had been disappointed. There wasn't a pulley or a lift, just a long tunnel and a flight of stairs after a cave like entrance. At the bottom of the stairs was the principal haulage track. And from that point began the nether world. Someone with the name of Pradyumna Mishra would have been out of place there. Somaru Khodia took over from him, and his designation changed to a casual loader. It paid good money, but the work was hard. Pradyumna could not manage it. And so his uncle, a regular at the union office, had put in a word with the manager and got him the job of a tub checker. Being a tub checker was a bit like being a babu. The timbermen or dressers or haulage trammers or wagoners or tub riders were laborers and got covered with coal dust. A tub checker, though, only had to keep track of what tubs brought in and took out. And it meant an extra rupee or two per tub in addition to your salary. What better job could there have been? After he started working in the mine, Pradyumna lost another illusion. He had formed from films and storybooks about the poverty and exploitation associated with coal mining. There were no signs of that anywhere. People had enough money. Another form of deprivation did exist, though. They did not know how to spend the money they earned. No one had upgraded from string cots to comfortable beds. The houses did not have curtain on the doors or windows. The wives, even of the miners, who earned 2,000 rupees a month, did not have a decent saris. This had left Pradyumna perplexed. Of late, however, he had ceased to wonder about all this. He had grown accustomed to coal mine, and at the beginning he had shocked and surprised him. Uncle Ogoni had touched his hand to his head and exclaimed, "Have you gone mad? Do you think it doesn't cost money to get a job in coal mine? For the job of a loader on shift duty, there's people with BAs and MAs lining up. They have to pretend to be illiterate to get their names registered. Not only that, but to jump the line for an interview costs 500 to 1,000 rupees, paid under the table to the man at the employment exchange, and then you have to grease the palm of the labor officer or the personnel officer. If you get through that, then you have to cough up still more money for the medical fitness certificate. If you have a hydrocele or eye problem, then you are done for. The Dr. Babu will ask you for 2,000 to 3,000 rupees for the certificate. There's no chance of ending up with a job in a hurry. Pradyumna was well aware his uncle and aunt were not pleased with the way he had landed up at their house out of the blue. He had seen them speaking in hushed tones behind his back, going quiet when he was present. He had wanted to leave, but the thought of returning home made him feel utterly helpless. Why was that? Why? Uncle Ogoni had asked him, "What's missing in Sarbeswar Bhaina's house that you want to work in a God-forsaken place like this?" Pradyumna's father was by no means rich, but he was comfortable off. As far as others were concerned, he was well off indeed. Probably because he had a house with an asbestos roof and a cement floor. In addition, he had 2 ponds, 50 to 60 coconut trees, 5 or 6 acres of land, and a pakka house in Borogondi Sahi in Puri, which had been rented out. But all of this was what outsiders saw. Pradyumna knew that in reality the situation was not so good. His 3 unmarried sisters, sitting at home with nothing to do after passing their MA degrees. No marriage prospects were in sight. The older brother did not have a job, but he would not leave the village or the farm the land. He had a wife and a daughter. In the house, along with Pradyumna and his parents, there were 2 laborers, 4 pairs of bullocks, 2 cows that gave milk only for 3 months after they calved, a maidservant, and a 12-year-old boy who ran errands. That such a large family could not manage on the paddy from 6 acres of land, the produce of 50 coconut trees, and the rent on their house in Puri. This Pradyumna knew all too well. According to his sister, Pradyumna was selfish and lazy. His sister-in-law considered him a burden on the family, only thinking of filling his belly. His father had once thought he had a bright future. But when Pradyumna failed his BA degree, he concluded Pradyumna would follow in the footsteps of his older brother. This made Pradyumna unhappy. As for his friends, they tended to sideline him because he was sickly and weak. Lying on the string cot in a room in a small 2-roomed asbestos roof house in his uncle at the colliery, Pradyumna overheard the hushed conversation between Uncle Agani and his wife. That was when he decided how he is going to act in the coming days. The world below was completely different, dingy, dimly lit, and sordid. The tubs trundled along the haulage tracks. From somewhere would come the boom of an explosion, and the earth would shake. Black shadows ran everywhere. Which way? The light attached to the headgear cast shadows over people's faces, enveloping much of them in darkness. In the beginning, it had been difficult for Pradyumna to identify people underground. All the faces looked the same. These days he had got used to the darkness and was able to make out shapes and figure out passages. The office of the tub checker was near the conveyor belt. Two empty wooden boxes that had housed explosives served as the table, and a stump of wood as chair. A bare light bulb burned overhead. Two or three grimy registers were piled on the table. When he looked for Ananta, the tub checker of relay A, Pradyumna did not find him. A new man had replaced him, and he did not bother with Pradyumna, staying bowed over his register doing some calculations. Pradyumna stopped for a moment. Are you on A shift? He asked. Without looking up, the man answered in an offhand manner, B shift. I am supposed to be working on B shift. Who the hell are you? What's your job? Why are you sitting here? Asked Pradyumna. This time the man lifted his head, his look hard as stone, as if he was ready for a fight. The foreman told me to work as a tub checker starting today. Anything else you want to know? Go and ask foreman. Now let me get back to my work. Pradyumna's ears reddened from the humiliation. Most of the people from the colliery were rude like this, unable to say anything in a civil manner. People here always behaved impolitely. He had got the position of tub checker only because Uncle Logani had used his influence with the manager. So, how could this have happened? What if the foreman had transferred him to the loading section? Loading tubs was very hard work. Loaders came out of the mine with aching shoulders and backs. Pradyumna shuddered at the thought of going back to the loading. He would not be able to work that hard. Not only that, but being a loader was no better than being a laborer. Pradyumna knew no one in the mine could comprehend why he was feeling so helpless. The foreman who sat out there giving out the jobs would never be able to understand that a boy from a Brahminical village who had failed his BA had never dug a sow full of earth or harvested an ear of paddy, let alone held a plowshare. Only someone in Pradyumna's place could understand how pathetic it would be for such a boy to load coal into a tub. Still, Pradyumna went to see the foreman. There was a mob around him of the typical country people and laborers from the coal mining area. They all wore torn shorts and dirty lungis with a belt and batteries. Their vests were pitch black and filthy. their helmets covered with dirt and grease. The foreman seemed to lord it over them. Pradyumna remained standing. Once the rush was over, the foreman looked at him and asked, "Hey, why aren't you working? What's your name?" Pradyumna almost gave his real name, but checked himself just in time. Somaru Khodia, casual loader. The foreman looked at his notebook. Okay, he said. Go and do the loading. There has been an explosion in Sector 6 on level 5. Bhimasan Boiragi is your partner. Go and load your tub. Pradyumna protested. But I have signed up as a tub checker. The foreman laughed, a sarcastic, uncivilized laugh. He made fun of Pradyumna. Signed up as tub checker, have you? So what? As if you are born a tub checker? Bloody casual loader? You'll have to work your guts out in whatever job you are given. You'll bloody well have to. Says he signed up as tub checker. Pradyumna gritted his teeth so as not to say anything after this earful. Before starting to work, he had been very sensitive, taking to heart his friends' jokes, his sister's reprimands, and his father's rebukes. He would sulk for days. After that, he had come to accept them. These sorts of comments were commonplace, and it would be hard to survive if he gave them any weight. Pradyumna came back out of the pit, not saying anything to the foreman. He told the timekeeper, "Put me down as a no-show today." The timekeeper looked up. "Name?" he asked. "Somaru Khodia, casual loader." "Why no-show?" The timekeeper asked the question automatically, without expecting an answer. He pored over the register to find the name of Somaru Khodia. Pradyumna did not say anything. He returned his lamp at the counter and left. What he saw demoralized him. The heap of coal at the entrance to the mine, the conveyor, the wagons and the trucks. This was a lonely coal mine in a tiny place away from any town, and an even lonelier residential colony. His destiny was tied to this place. The dreams of his college days have been abandoned. Once he had hopes of being important, of rising to an important position, but now he seemed to be destined to spend the next 30 or 40 years of his life exiled in this lonely land under an assumed name and identity. That he was son of Sarveshwar Mishra from the Brahmanical village of Puri, that he had studied at SCS College Puri, all this would become a lie, and he would live his life as Somaru Khodia, son of Boitu Khodia, a scheduled tribal. He would be like everyone else in this coal mine, coming to the pit in the morning and returning home at dusk, dog tired. Except for holidays, his days would form one continuous blur. Pradyumna was devastated. When he fondly looked back over the 20 long years he had carefully built up his identity, he almost broke down from a sense of despair. He was intensely aware that he had no friends, that he was alone with no one with whom he could share his feelings of isolation, his burdens, or who would comfort him with a soft hand on his back. Like, share, and subscribe in our YouTube channel.